Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 439 and my guest is Adam Chester. Adam is known to the Elton John Band as the Surrogate Elton, and since 2005, he plays backup and rehearses the Elton John Band on piano and vocals. He arranged and conducted Elton's 60th birthday concert at Madison Square Garden, and when there are choirs and things that sing with Elton, it's generally Adam who is the conductor and arranger for that. He refreshes Elton John on songs that Elton may not have played for decades. God knows Elton John has gajillions of songs, so it's probably really hard to remember some that aren't in his regular rotation. So Adam helps with that. He is an accomplished performing songwriter in his own right. I have seen him perform a couple times. He's great. And he is also the author of the hilarious memoir Smother, which is on Amazon and is a really funny book about the wild letters and notes and messages that his mom had given him over many decades. When we did this interview, Adam talks about his book, and she has sadly since passed away. And I want to dedicate this episode to her. Her name is Joan Chester. She did a heck of a job, raised an incredible human being. And so this one's for you. Wherever you are, Joan, up there, looking down, everywhere, all the places. You did a good job with your son. He's a good human. Adam is awesome, really lovely person, and I know Elton John is going through a difficult time right now, so I hope they figure out what's going on there, and Elton John is all better really soon. Check out heyhumanpodcast.com for links and to learn more about my guests and the show. Hey Human Podcast is on YouTube under Official Susan Ruth. I'm on Patreon at Susan Ruthism. My TikTok and Instagram is also Susan Ruthism. Check out susanruth.com to learn more about me and my other artistic endeavors, and find my albums on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever you get your music. Rate, review, and subscribe to Hey Human Podcast on Apple, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. Be well, be kind, be love. Happy holidays. Here we go. Adam Chester, welcome to Hey Human.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's jump right in. Tell me where you were raised, what growing up was like, how you began getting influenced by music.
I hate music. I just, it's not what I want. I can't, I don't know what I'm doing here. Wait, no, none of that's true. I started in music so young. I mean, there's apparently in a box in my garage somewhere, reel-to-reel recordings of me singing Beatles songs at the age of 2 in perfect pitch. I don't think my dad was a big fan of the Beatles. I lost him at a young age, so I don't know. But I was singing them all, and he kept trying to redirect me to sing more serious music and kids' songs at the age of 2, and he's got a ticket to high, and whatever words I could, enunciate at the time. So I don't know. I guess music was always in my life. I grew up in New Jersey, and I guess we were in Wayne, New Jersey. I know nothing about New Jersey because I left when I was 8 when he passed away, and we moved to Miami Beach. So I consider Miami Beach more of my growing up town. I had a keyboard at a very young age, and I would sit there and bang on it. And when we'd visit my grandparents in Miami Beach before we moved there, they had a piano, and I would literally sit up and, do that kind of thing. I was never afraid to make noise, which I find a lot of kids these days who I see in the piano store are afraid to touch a note, and they recoil. I never was. It's like it was always just part of my being. Yeah, music and me, and singing and playing was always just who I am. It's like another appendage.
Losing your father so young.
Yeah.
That, I'm sure, had a great impact on you. And especially for a kid that sounds like you were sensitive and quite possibly a prodigy, how do all those things intermingle at the time?
I don't know if I would have attached myself to the piano as much as I did when he died of cancer. It was pancreatic cancer. He was 43. And I was 8 at the time, and I'm glad we're starting this with humor. But no, I lost him at such a young age, and I think that's what attached me to the piano. I just went whoop, and just stuck with it. I mean, like I said, I was singing at a very young age, and I was playing a little tiny organ my parents had for me in Jersey. So it was always a part of me, but his passing, I think, really made me stick to it, because it became my only outlet. My mom, who I wrote a book about called Smother, and it's all funny, and she's still alive. She's actually in the car. Should I crack a window? Right before he got ill, I started writing little simple melodies on the piano. So, and I remember the first song I wrote, it was sort of a Rich Little, who was an impersonator at the time. I call it my Rich Little of a piano song. I was trying to copy what I knew, and there was this one tune on the Black Keys that I loved called I Want Coffee, You Want Tea, or whatever it was. Right? And so I think I did something based on that. It was in the same key. So the first song I ever wrote was... very similar. I never got sued, but I was totally into writing. So, but after he passed, it was what I did. And then I started writing whatever love songs a 9-year-old can write. I think it was more about melodies. And as I got, 12, 13, then it became, let's write a song to make that girl fall in love with me. Oh, wait. No, she's prettier. Let's write a song about her.
And of course, you're playing piano and not guitar. It's much harder to lug a piano from party to party.
or the beach. I mean, I was the loser sitting at the beach going, I can play piano. And meanwhile, the guitarist was sitting there serenading everybody. And I'm like, boy, this sucks. So, yeah, it was just something I connected to and then just stayed with as an outlet.
Sure. And our mutual friend, John Penny, who introduced us, who I adore, he said you wrote a song for Goldie Hawn that your mother then got to her.
That it's one of those charm moments that I have, so many amazing memories. I wrote a song for her when I was, 15, a love song. And all I remember, honestly, is the chorus. It was literally Goldie, oh, won't you hold me when I'm blue? My moments are golden when I'm thinking of you. Even better than the original. It was some sort of ragtimey cool love song. And so I was invited to play her house. I think it was 2 years ago, probably 2021, maybe. Yeah, it was 2021. So 3 years ago. And there she was with Kurt Russell. And I thought, if I don't say something now, I'll regret this. And she passed by the piano and I said, Goldie, I know you're busy. I want to share something with you. I wrote a song for you when I was, 14, and my mom told me to mail it to Goldie Hawn, Hollywood, California. And I don't think you ever got it. I sent the cassette tape and she said, I didn't. Oh, play it for me. And I said, honestly, all I remember is the chorus. And I sang that She sat next to me on the piano bench at her house. She was holding my arm. I have it on video, luckily, because Kate Hudson, her daughter, filmed the whole thing. It's just one of those memories. I mean, she gave me a kiss and she said it was absolutely beautiful. And oh, she feels so bad for not having received it. And
I love Goldie Hawn. She's the best.
amazing. Yeah. And I really did have a massive crush on her when I saw her as a child.
Everyone. Who didn't? So did I. I mean, how do you not? It's Goldie Hawn.
It was adorable. And Kate is sort of that similar vibe, but Goldie has this innocence about her. It's just charming, and there I was sitting next to her at the piano bench, and Kurt's, sitting on the couch behind me going, it was just pretty cool.
I love it.
Magic moment.
Yeah, the 15-year-old you was from
in heaven. I was in heaven. It just goes to show you that the magic of the U.S. mail doesn't always work.
That just because he should have sent it to Santa Claus.
Right.
Santa Claus would have done it.
I should have. The same kind of address in my North Pole. I shouldn't. I should have done that. You're right.
Santa Claus is like, why do we keep getting Goldie Hawn's mail?
You're right. Can somebody course correct this kid? I'm busy. Yeah. These charm moments. I didn't even. I mean, I remember that moment, of course, but when you bring it up, it all comes back to life.
Yeah.
Lucky to have it on film.
I saw that you had taken your upright piano to your dorm room in college. That I live in a walk-up apartment, and my poor little upright sits in storage waiting for me, penning me love letters and that I don't respond to.
Yes. Susan Ruth, LA, California, that's it. Please take me back. My identity is enmeshed in piano. And so I was in Miami and I had to get as far away from my mother as possible for sanity reasons. And I got into USC, Southern California, in music. And I thought, well, I'm not going there without my piano. What kid takes their upright piano to a dorm, 3,000 miles away? But it was a no-brainer. My mom didn't question me. No one questioned me. And we had it shipped there. And my apartment there with 3 other roommates my freshman year became sort of a focal point of that floor in this, tall dormitory that's still there, Webb Tower, if anyone from SC listens here. We were on the 7th floor and there was my piano. And, at least once a week, we'd have a gathering of freshmen and mostly freshmen, but some sophomores, hanging out and singing in our apartment. It became my way of meeting people. It's how I got in a fraternity, which me in a fraternity, seriously. But I walked in and there was a upright piano and I started playing and I got in the fraternity. As soon as I realized what I stepped into, I deactivated, they call it. As soon as you become a member, I deactivated the following year because it wasn't for me. But again, it was that beckoning thing in this foreign frat house with a bunch of dudes drinking beer, and I hate beer. I'm sorry. And so, there's the piano and it was just my thing. So yeah, it's always been with me.
Did you know that you had an extraordinary talent? Because I've seen piano players, myself included, who know how to sort of, play a piano or at least fake it till you make it. But then there are people that play the piano and it's transports you to another world, which I would put you in that category, having seen you perform now.
Thank you.
Where there's such a nuance to it.
Yeah, I didn't always have that. I think in my younger years, I overplayed a lot, and that became just my thing. And it was always joyous and people always connected, but now I enjoy when I enjoy when I play more. I find that less really is more, and it's the way you play. And an incredible composer, human being, I think he's in his early 80s now, Artie Butler, who did most of the Barry Manilow arrangements, and just an incredibly talented pianist and arranger, said something to me that I'll never forget. I heard him play, and he was literally like barely touching the keys. And I said, Artie, when you play that chord that way, it makes me listen more. I want to know what you're doing. And he said, sometimes the more quiet you play, the louder it is for someone. It just was like, oh shit, Artie, that's fucking brilliant. I try to take that into what I do now. And you saw me at the Georgian Hotel in Santa Monica, which I love that place. And
so beautiful.
I've decided it's not the place I want to sing. I just want to play because I kind of like that vibe. It makes people feel less obligated to listen to you when they're having dinner, they're out on a date, they're out on a business meeting. If you're singing, it's sort of more intrusive. So this is just my take. And so I sit there and I play. And, last Wednesday I was playing. I don't have a tip jar because it's kind of, I don't want to say gauche, but it's not the place for it. And people were dropping off 20s on my music desk saying, thank you. You made our dinner. And I mean, it was overwhelming because I was just sitting there playing whatever came to my head. There was a celebrity chef there. He's got a sort of storied past, so I won't mention his name, but he invited me over to the booth and said, hey, can you play any Dr. John? And I said, So I grabbed my cell phone and I called up his song, Wrong Place, Right Time, or whatever it is, Right Place, Wrong Time. And I was listening to it and playing it,
Must have been the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. Could have been a long night, something like that.
And I was just playing it while I was listening to it. And he was like, how do you do that? And I said, I don't know. If I hear the song and I somewhat know the song, and it's not like the Rack 3 by Rachmaninoff, I can play it. And that's always freaked people out. And I love doing that.
I get that. Also, You spent a lifetime with this instrument, so you know what it sounds like. It's your baby.
He's my friend. Yeah, it's I'm lucky to have it, and I still have that upright because my mom and dad bought it for me when I was 5. And so it went from Jersey to Miami to LA, and now I had it rebuilt. It's now a cobalt blue in color, and I took off the name Kohler and Campbell because who cares about that brand? And I put Chester and Sons on the fall board. So it's totally my piano, and I'll never get rid of it. A lot of cool songs were written on that piano by me. I think they're cool, but what do I know? I don't know.
Yeah, and it becomes a member of your family. It's absolutely. And that you'll pass on to your kids if you have kids,
Yeah, I got 2 boys, and one's 21, one's 18. My 21-year-old is in New York City doing his music, and his voice is remarkable, and his name is Truman, and he writes music like it's second nature to him. And then Marcello, he was doing music. He was doing the Screamo Band, which he was the lead singer in. And, I got to tell you, I don't think I dislike any music. I see something in everything. And even the stuff he was screaming was like, it's kind of cool. I get the emotion. I get the passion. Would I play it? No, but I get it. So I'm not sure that's something he's going to pursue. He's 18. He's figuring it out. But Truman is, full-time New York doing it. And, I just hope it all works out. It's a tough business.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Yeah. And you've got A game on the child naming.
Thank you. Yeah, True is it's an emotional story about it because, he was named after my dad, whose name was Elliot. And so everyone said, well, why don't you name him Elliot? And I said, I don't think I can call my son my dad's name. It just doesn't feel right to me. So, I mean, to me, Truman and Elliot as his middle name made sense. So in my mind, he's the true Elliot. I lost the argument for the second name, although I love Marcello. My idea was to call, my name for him would have been Emmett, but my wife hated that name. And in Hebrew, Emmett means true. And I thought, we'd have a whole true theme going. That didn't work. So, but he's Marcello, he's not Emmett. And I adore them both.
Yeah. I always think about when babies are born that they must whisper their names to you or something.
Something like that, maybe. 8,000 books that I had taken an interest in were guiding me to what name speaks to me. And, when that whole True Elliot thing came, I thought, oh my God, that's it. I mean, it was clear. And there was a moment we were thinking of naming him Elliot Truman. And then I said, I can't do it. I can't call him Elliot. And then he looked like a Truman and Marcello looked like a Marcello. So you're right. I think they adapt to what you name them. They become that.
Yeah, I say it a lot on this show. I don't think my parents got my name right. I don't know what my name is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. It's never fit me for whatever reason.
Huh. All right. Well, I'll try to think of something. I'll do it in a song, though. Oh, I got it. Susie, oh, won't you hold me when I'm blue? Oh, wait, no, that's Goldie. Never mind. I'll figure it out.
When you went off to college, I understand it's when you started receiving letters from your mom.
Oh, Jesus, you know too much. Yeah, she began writing me snail mail. We didn't have cell phones then, so there were no calls really. And they were ridiculously hysterical, mostly very short letters. Sometimes there would be a couple of valid, weird points, but it would always end with some tidbit of insanity. It was blah, blah, blah. Don't drink rainwater. A whole paragraph of crap ending with, P.S. there's a resistant form of gonorrhea going around. Wear a condom. And I saved them all because I knew they were insane. And one day the book came out, Smother, S''Mother. Abrams Publishing did it. I got signed for a TV deal before I wrote the book, which was crazy. And the TV show, it never got off the ground. I'll finish that story in a second. And then I saw all these letters. My wife was like, why don't you start a blog? And so I started a blog based on one of the letters' key points, one of the letters' key points, which was, please don't eat sushi, love mom. And that became the blog that started this thing. And then I decided I might as well write a book and do a through line of my life around these letters and how I was growing and the letters weren't. I mean, it was just still insanity. And the funny thing is, I kept getting re-signed by William Morris to do a television show. They were going to find a showrunner to do the script, and it just never took off. But at one point, Jack Black was involved. I was sitting in an office at one time with Gary Marshall across the desk writing. We wrote, he and I wrote a TV idea. I read it and I hear Gary's voice, but I was sitting in a room across from a desk for about 4 months with Gary Marshall. And that I tell people that my mother killed Gary Marshall because it was right as we were finishing it that he died. And I thought, well, that figures. But there were some very funny moments. So cut to now, dear friend of mine, Bob Cushell, who wrote Third Rock. God, I hope it was Third Rock. He'll kill me if I'm wrong.
Third Rock is a great show. Wow, what a show.
He's brilliant. But he never wrote a movie, and he and I started talking about this idea of this overprotective mom and a musician who happens to work with a famous celebrity. As I, work with Elton, he wrote a screenplay, and now there's a director attached, Andy Fickman, who is, just wonderfully funny. So we'll see where it goes. But see, all these years after it, that idea still seems to resonate. I tell my kids, look, you'll be rich. I'll be long gone, but maybe it'll become a success. I hope. But there's all these fun little projects going on in the background that keep me smiling aside from just playing.
Yeah. So you get out of college and you start playing with people, and you're writing your music. Where did Elton come along?
Well, Elton came in second after Barry White. I got introduced to the R&B singer Barry White by a friend of mine, Paul Kaufman, and his business partner. And I forget how they knew him, but we met, and Barry was a towering, big human being. And his catchphrase in conversation was "show you right." And you would see him, and the first thing he'd say is, "show you right," and he'd give you a big hug, and you'd be like, "I can't breathe, Barry." But he was so cool. And I was working with him and one of his kids, Barry White Jr., to do an album. And we recorded a couple of songs that I wrote and I played on and I sang. And I was like, one day I looked at Barry Sr. We were alone in his studio in the Valley at his house. I said, "Barry, what's Barry Jr. doing on in the group?" And he said, "He's going to dance." And I was like, "He's going to dance. That's great." I didn't get it. And I feel terrible, but I said, I can't. I don't. He's going to dance? That didn't happen. I was the one who said, I don't really get it. And I think that really pissed Barry Sr. off. And I get it, because I was basically saying no. Here I was, this cocky 22-year-old kid telling Barry White Sr., "You don't really want to work with your son." And I feel terrible, because who knows, that could have been something. But it led me to get a job at a record store in Hollywood, and in walked Elton John's guitarist, Davy Johnstone. I knew who he was immediately, because I was a huge Elton fan. And that's why my working with Elton is so ironic to all the kids I know from high school. They're like, "You had posters all over your room of Elton." I tried to get his glasses when I first started wearing frames when I was 11 or 10. I was obsessed with Elton. And here Davey gets handed in my lap. We became instant friends. There's nobody else I love more in this business. Not only one of the greatest guitar players, but truly, he and his wife Kay, incredible human beings. And one day he was playing live gigs with me around town. This reminds me of something. I was 13 years old in Miami, and my band, Thunder and Lightning, stupid name, was with Louis Mizrahi and Wayne Hutman and Jeff Schiff. These names mean nothing to anyone but to me, okay? But we were introduced, and the camera was there. And when the camera came to introduce and Adam Chester on the keys, I had an itch on my nose. And you tell me what this looks like here.
It looks like you're picking your nose, yes.
Horrifying. That was my first big break on television. And I did this when I was with you, and I'm like, I was scratching my nose. I'm like, I got to tell her this story. Anyway, so Davey was playing gigs with me everywhere around LA, and he was recording my original music with me. And this is the kind of human he is, because he thought it was great and he wanted to do it. And then in about 2004, he came to me and he said, "Hey, Adam, Elton doesn't like to rehearse, and the guy we've been using, he's the keyboardist, but he doesn't sing, and now he's not playing keys anymore. Would you be interested in doing it?" So I started rehearsing the band. I guess it was 2005 when we first started having rehearsals. So almost 20 years. Elton heard a CD they made of me playing and singing his parts, and he's like, "Let's bring him to Boston and have him rehearse the choir there." So it was in Boston I got to meet Elton, and we were this is just a funny story. We were in a church rehearsing in Boston, and I'll never forget it. It was 12 noon, and of course the church bells were ringing 12, and I was standing outside the church with Davey, and Elton was on his way in for the first time to rehearse what I had been rehearsing with the band. And ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. And I was just thinking, this is one of these insanely surreal moments where I'm waiting to meet my hero, and these bells are ringing, and I'm all nerve. He had heard me on CD. Of course, I had heard him on albums for my entire life. And car pulls up, big limo. That wasn't the place to meet. And so I went back inside to the church. I waited for him to come up the stage, and we had a hug on stage. We met each other, and I'm sitting at a little keyboard over here, and he's at the piano over there in front of me. The band behind me, the small choir, the Voices of Atlanta, they were called, I think, and the crew, the sound crew. No audience, just, sporadic manager, whatever. And we start playing these songs from the album Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, because it was the reunion, the anniversary tour of that album's release, like whatever it was, 30 years, whatever it was. So Elton hadn't played these songs in decades, except for Someone Saved My Life Tonight. That was from that album. Everything else he hadn't played. So he was supposed to have done his homework and come prepared to this first rehearsal. And so we're in this building either near the church or in the church. Now I don't remember, but we were there, and he forgot how to play Better Off Dead, ironically, from that album. And we start playing, and he stops all of a sudden, and he can't remember the chord. And he says, "Adam, what is that next chord?" And I said, "It's I'm telling Elton what his song is in front of everybody. And it was one of those, again, a surreal moment that somebody caught on film, because they were filming it, but I've never seen it. This was 2005. And I don't even think we had cell phones in 2005, unless you had General MacArthur's big...
Yeah, that giant...
Yeah, right. I didn't have access to that moment, unfortunately. There we were, rehearsing that song, and he kind of got it, and we went on to the next song, and then he got kind of pissed off that he didn't remember how to play these songs, and he walked off the stage. He was like, "Fuck this, nobody wants to hear this old shit anyway," and he walked off the stage. Out of the auditorium, he's gone. So you have to still picture now the dead silence of all the crew, the small choir, the band, the sporadic members in the audience. I'm at the little keyboard and a microphone, and he's gone. And I said, "Well, that went well." And everybody started laughing in the band. And it was like, oh my God, what do I do now? I called my wife when I got back to the hotel, and I said, I think I'm coming home. I think the show's canceled. And then the very next day, he was back. He knew his shit. I don't know what happened, and he said, no, we're going to drop that song that I don't want to do because I really don't want to play it. Great. And he did most the entire album, and it was immaculate. He was incredible that next day of rehearsal.
He just had to feel his feelings and get it out.
That's all it was, and everybody said, he had such a temper and all this nonsense. That was the only time that I personally really experienced anything. He's always been nothing but kind to me.
Yeah.
So
he strikes me, having never met him and only have, interviews and performances to go on. He strikes me as somebody who is exceptional at their craft on a level that is godlike. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but as in God is speaking through this person.
Yeah.
And that's got to be anyone that can play like that, in my humble opinion. And this goes for any artist who can paint like that or sing like that or whatever. They are experiencing the world with such a rawness and understanding that is beyond normal human consumption, that it's probably got to be almost like being an open nerve walking through the world, you know?
And all these people watching you, expecting you to be perfect.
Wanting,
all the time.
Yes.
And it's not possible. So a funny tag to that story, as a thank you for my work getting everybody ready, Elton said, I want you to sing with the choir for the show. There were I think it was a 10-member choir. It was very small. It was an all gospel choir. I was the only white, straight, Jewish guy in the entire choir. And I would have loved every second of it. But they had these dance moves that they needed to do. They were doing these very, like what looked like a salute. They would point, they would turn, they would shake. It was bizarre. And so the night before the first show in Boston, before we went to Madison Square Garden for 3 shows, by the way, I was in my hotel room with one of the members of the choir teaching me these dance moves. I didn't know what the hell I was doing because I don't really dance. I sit in front of a piano because I don't dance. I don't like to do crazy moves. So when we got to the Garden, I thought I had to step down by then because it had been several days. And we finished the first show. I walk outside the Garden. I'm with some friends. And these people stop me. And they said, hey, weren't you that guy on stage singing with Elton? And I said, yeah, I was part of the choir. And I thought, oh my God, somebody recognized me. This is so awesome. And they continued, did you win your spot to be up there? Oh my God, that's hysterical. That's hysterical. Because I look like an idiot, I'm sure, pointing and saluting and turning and all these very not demure moves. And
does Elton John owe you money?
Oh my God, I loved singing it. There was one song we did. I put it on YouTube because I found a clip of it someone sent me where the Jumbotron at the Garden caught me in split screen with Elton. So check this out. It was this song from the Captain Fantastic album called Curtains, where it ends with a big lum de lum de lum, very sing-along thing. And the choir was singing it very straight, which for a gospel choir who wasn't straight, it was very, very odd to hear lum de lum. And I was one night at the Boston Garden, I think it was called then, Davey told me he spoke with Elton, and Elton wanted me to continue belting it out and with some gusto. So I was up there going, lum-de-lum-de-lay-o. And so they put me in split screen at the Garden and captured this. And it was like, oh my God, the choir hated me. They were so pissed because they're like, what? How? What is he doing? This isn't a solo act, And I get it, but I was told to do that, and it was mesmerizing for me to be in a split screen with Elton and doing this call and response with him, and you could see in his face that he was like, and every night I guess we did 2 shows in Boston, maybe 3, and then we did 3 at the Garden. And every night, Davey came to me and said, Elton loves what you're doing. Keep doing it. Do more. And I was like, so by the last night, I grabbed the mic off of the mic stand. I'm like, I felt so empowered by that because it was like there were no dance steps during that freaking song. And it was about the passion, and it all came out. It was so cool. So cool.
That's great. I read that you were now called a surrogate.
That's Davey. Davey called me the surrogate Elton. He called me our secret weapon, and then he said, "You're my surrogate Elton." And so I thought, surrogate Elton. Well, if you shorten Sir, that's Sir. So I'm Sir Elton with a UR. That makes sense, Davey. And he said, I came up with that. So yeah, they call me the surrogate Elton, and I'll never do an Elton tribute band. It's just not what I do. And I play and sing his songs as if I wrote them. And that's, I think, what makes them special, because I feel so connected to his music, having loved him and his music since I was, right after my dad died, I think, is when I really started getting into pop and Captain and Tennille, because Captain was such an amazing keyboard player, and Neil Sedaka, and then I started getting into R&B and Prince and all the dance groups of the 70s, Tavares and Earth, Wind and Fire. That became, how do I connect with that music on the piano? How can I play an Earth, Wind and Fire song on the piano and make it sound like they do? It became fun. And, I don't think of myself at all. There are piano players who can play rings around me. But what I do, I think, is special. I think I connect to the piano in a way that is very personal. And I like to tell people that I play these songs as if I wrote them, because that's when I get close to them. I'm not trying to do a tribute act. I'm not trying to play them exactly the way they did it, unless that's what's being asked. And when I was rehearsing Elton, that's what was being asked. We want you to play it the way Elton plays it, so when he steps in, we'll be familiar with what to do. So in that sense of the word, I was playing very much like he was doing it. But when I'm on my own, I make them my own.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And when you sit down at the different pianos, this is something that I guess I didn't realize until I got my first piano, that that was mine as an adult, that as I was wandering through the piano store and sitting down and playing, there were some very expensive pianos, but I wasn't responding to them like I did when I finally came upon the one that I chose. It was like a relationship was immediately formed. It was such an interesting feeling.
Yep. So I manage a piano store in Sherman Oaks called Faust Harrison Pianos, and it's really a great store with a ton of pianos that, vary in prices and size and whatever. But, people ask me on a daily, what's your favorite piano in here? And I say, It depends on the day because it's a different piano sometimes. Sometimes I'm not connected with that piano the way I was this one today. In a different store I was working in LA called David Abel's for a while, John Bryan came in, who's a very famous composer for movies, scores. He did I Heart Huckabee. He's a genius. And he produced Fiona Apple's album. He said something to me in the piano store that I never forgot. He said, some pianos have songs to sing and they're not done singing them, you know? And I thought, well, okay. And I get it, you know. I was gifted a baby grand piano by some friends of ours, and I wrote a song on it, you know, like the first night I had it there. I was lucky. It sang to me, and it's an instrumental song. I sent it to my son, Truman, and I said, you think it needs lyrics? And he came up with some lyrics, and I thought, some of these are actually pretty good. Maybe this could be a father-son duo thing. Who knows? Whenever I play the chords, I'm like, this is different, and this is special. It's called I Forgot Who I Was. And it's really deep and very kind of cool.
Nice. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
And you can be seen playing out and about in LA.
Yeah, the Georgian Room at the Georgian Hotel on Wednesdays. That's in Santa Monica. The Sunset Marquee most Tuesdays. That's a sing-along party. You know, I can't get away with just playing there. I gotta sing, and it's a party. And then on occasion, the Chateau Marmont, which is again just one of those Hollywood iconic places. And I'm like, oh my God, Belushi died here. You know,
and his ghost is there.
Everybody's ghost is there.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I like that place. It's got so much stuff going on.
A lot of stuff. You know, you just look around. You're like, focus, focus, focus.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, not just, but the energy of that place is real wild.
Yeah. Yeah, they all have their own different energies. The Georgian is where Dick Van Dyke got his start in vaudeville over 60 years ago. And they redid the room as a speakeasy.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I adore it.
The food is impeccable also.
Pretty damn good. I know. I'm trying to eat light, but it's so good there.
So good. I'm not a great piano player. I can get by on a couple things. I wish my piano was here because practice is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, for whatever reason, when I pick up a guitar and I play it, like I can play the guitar, I can play the rhythm of it and all that. But there's something about a piano. And
yeah.
My question is, I think a lot of people are intimidated by the piano, not just because of its size, but just it seems like so much math. You know, it seems complicated. And anytime I see a piano in an alleyway that's been abandoned, you know, or you know, come take my piano free, I get mad.
Yeah.
What is some maybe advice for people that are intimidated by the instrument?
It's all the same notes. There's only 12 tones and they just repeat. So once you get the pattern of where everything is, the black keys are 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. It's all the same. So while it may be mathematical, I'm terrible in math, but to me, the image is very clear. And it's the space in between these black notes where these white notes fall, and they just repeat. They're all the same. And it's just, okay, so where do I want to start?
The black notes are sort of like dreamy that way. And then there's all the white notes, which sound less dreamy. And there are only really 12 different tones, which are, if you combine the white and the black notes, and that's it. And then it just keeps repeating and repeating.
I tell people who are intimidated, to not be afraid to make mistakes, because it's the mistake. It's when you make the mistake that your ear should say, what was that? And how do I make that resolve in a way that is different? This chord.
And keep building it kind of creepy crawly, even if you have to. But to resolve somewhere, then it makes sense, going up or down.
It can go so many places. It's insane. This is all the same thing, but it represents infinity. So if you can sort of grapple with the idea that it's okay to do what sounds like an error and then resolve it to something if you must, and you've got a film score.
And then you play that wrong note, and then you've got a film score. Whee!
It's like this episode of Star Trek when, this is how much of a geek I am, the original Star Trek, when McCoy, the doctor, gets infinite brain power and he knows how to repair Spock's brain. And he says to Captain Kirk, he says, Jim, this is child's play. It's so easy, it's child's play. And he eventually forgets because the power runs out after a certain period of time. And Spock helps him repair his own brain. But I get back to my point. It's almost child's play, that it's so complicated, yet it's so easy to just sit here and go and land where you may and then make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, you just have to be willing to do anything.
So that's my childlike advice to keeping it as simple and innocent as possible. It's a plethora of crap that you can make sense out of.
Well, that's the freedom that children have that we somehow lose.
Yeah.
You mustn't lose it. You mustn't lose it. That ability to just create out of nothing and not worry about what it means.
Correct. Not worry about what it sounds like, because sometimes the most offensive chord can be different. I'm one of those who goes, I make a mistake. Oh, I meant to do that. Because somehow it makes sense.
See, that could be a mistake because I've got an F and an F sharp, which really isn't very pretty, but by filling it with some other notes and then maybe moving the whole thing down or up, then it starts making more sense. Film score number 4.
Also, nobody really knows our mistakes on the outside world.
Except us. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you have a website that people can track your schedule and come see you?
It's adamchester.com. I'm on Instagram at _Adam Chester. But yeah, I always promote on Facebook for all of my older friends, because none of my kids' friends look at Facebook. It's like, what the heck is that? I promote on Facebook, Adam Chester.
Yeah, and I'll put links on heyhumanpodcast.com so people can find stuff really easily.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. This was a blast.
You're the best. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Rate, review, and subscribe to Hey Human Podcast on Apple, iHeart, and Spotify podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Bye.